I sense that we are in orbit above Coruscant. You have remained undetected by the Imperial Knights and the Jedi. You have truly become a Sith worthy of the name. I thought it fitting that I bring you here, apprentice, not only to test the amount that you have grown, but also because your next lesson deals with one of the most destructive conflicts in the history of the galaxy. The events which would unfold would claim the lives of trillions of beings, and they would echo out long after their time, sending ripples which can be felt still today within the Force. Coruscant is the heart of the galaxy. It has always been so, and it will always be so. Learn this fact, apprentice. It is good for you to hear this tale within her orbit. It is high past time that you began to learn the secrets of leadership. If you are to be a true Dark Lord of the Sith, then you must become a master of warfare. Warfare is the greatest crucible within which a being may find themselves. It winnows the weak from the strong and helps to shape those capable into something more than their individual selves. You must become a master of this crucible in order to find true power. And we will begin with closer study of an event which we have discussed before. The Great Galactic War. Unlocking file, History of the Force, The Great Galactic War. Processing. We have already discussed the Sith Emperor, Lord Vitiate, and his eventual fall, but we have not truly discussed the conflicts which he incited. When last we spoke of history, it was of the enigmatic figure, Revan. In that lesson, you learned that Revan, while prisoner of the Emperor, was able to subconsciously influence his mind to delay the war that Vitiate was planning against the Republic. For 300 years he was successful, but he could only delay the inevitable. Vitiate continued to build his fleets, and when the attack did come, it came in overwhelming force. The order to invade the Republic finally arrived in 3681 BBY. The war opened with a surprise attack on Korriban. A large fleet of Heror dreadnoughts was sent to liberate the ancient homeworld of the Sith, and this fleet quickly overwhelmed the few Republic and Jedi defenders. They reclaimed the world for the Sith for the first time in centuries. So quick and overwhelming was this assault that a warning could not be sent to the Republic. A few ships were able to escape the Sith blockade, but they were either hunted down or slow to report what had happened to the wider Republic. Sith warships made their way into the Tingle Arm while the assault was taking place. They positioned themselves in the areas around Bel-Kadan, Ruria, and Cernpedal, but they made no aggressive moves. Vitiate was laying a trap. The Republic responded to these strange new vessels with lightly escorted diplomatic teams. The Sith allowed these teams to get close and to send back video images of the vastness of their armada. Then, Vitiate ordered his vessels to attack. The envoys were quickly destroyed, and the panicked Republic responded by dispatching their fleet to the area. But the Republic had only just begun to fight a war which Vitiate had been waging for centuries. Remember this lesson, apprentice. It is at the heart of this chapter of history, and the first of 6 which you will receive. The victorious warrior wins first, and then seeks battle. Vitiate had laid his plans far in advance. For centuries, he had been sending secret envoys and Imperial agents throughout Republic space, making deals, secretly turning Republic allies into hidden foes. When the Republic fleet arrived in the Tingle Arm, many of the local sector factions defected to join the Sith. The Republic found itself caught, surrounded on all sides, former friends and allies at their rear, and the implacable Sith Navy bearing down on them from the rim. It was a slaughter, a masterful stroke of strategy, and one that you would do well to learn the lessons of. Know your enemy. If you do not know him, then find a way to come to know him. Turn their strengths into a weakness. Do all of this before your blade is ever drawn, before the first shot is fired, and victory will always be assured. The Republic Navy was put to the rout. It would be forced to limp its way back forward in bits and pieces. But Vitiate would not pause to appreciate his success. Another lesson, apprentice. Victory is not victory until it is complete. When you have the momentum, you must press it. Vitiate would follow up his successes in the Tingle Arm and at Korriban with an assault on the Sluis sector. Sluis Van and the surrounding worlds were important shipbuilding worlds for the Republic, incredibly vital to their overall war effort. With the Navy routed, it was completely undefended. The Imperials attacked the world, destroying the orbital shipyards which ringed the planet and brutally subjugating the population. The Republic was slow to respond to these defeats. The Senate bickered with itself, as it always does, and as such, the military was slow to respond. The Jedi, however, sensed the magnitude of the threat. By then, Satele Shan, a survivor of the attack on Korriban, had warned the Jedi the true nature of the invaders, and the Order knew that if their old enemy had returned, that it was a grave threat to them and the entire Republic. For once, the Jedi acted where the Republic did not. They gathered a small force and sent it to the Minos cluster. There, they would dig in along several worlds and fight desperate battles to hold back the encroaching Sith hordes. They would become cut off and slowly be whittled down to all but the most stubborn defenders. Still, their sacrifice was not without meaning. Hollows of the Jedi bravery in the Outer Rim inspired millions to sign up for the Republic military, and pushed public sentiment further and further towards a unified military response from the Senate. Remember again this lesson, apprentice, the third so far. It is one the Jedi, in this case, can teach you. Sometimes, sacrifice for a greater goal can shift the tide. They sent a force to Minos, looking not for a victory there, but for a means to move the wider Republic to action. They knew that only then could true victory be achieved, and as such, their sacrifice proved vital. Do not be afraid to sacrifice. Even valuable resources are as nothing in the face of total victory. As the Jedi fought on in Minos, the Republic would finally counterattack into the Sawina sector. The Sith had moved into this area of space to blockade the Rimma trade route and cut off the flow of supplies into Minos. It was a long and bloody campaign, but eventually the Republic would manage to drive the Sith back, and relief would come to those who remained in the Minos sector. 3 years into the war, intelligence that would lead them to attack the Sith homeworld of Korriban. Their fleet would engage the Sith in orbit, and an invasion force would be landed on the ground. However, this counteroffensive was quickly turned into a disaster. The fleet the Republic had sent was annihilated in orbit, cutting off the troops on the ground, who were then quickly overcome. The Imperials would again seize the initiative after this victory. They would launch another series of brutal offenses in the Outer Rim, starting with an invasion of the Republic world of Balmorra. Balmorra was an important producer of droids, and as such, strategically vital. Vitiate would order his forces to invade the world, and the fighting would become some of the most protracted and vicious of the war. It would even continue after official fighting had ended and the Cold War had begun. And here we have your fourth lesson. You do not need to win to achieve victory. Vitiate had to deprive the Republic of Balmorran war droids. His forces would never fully pacify the world, but the fighting would successfully disrupt the production of war machines. Effectively, he achieved the same result. Remember this, apprentice, when laying your strategies. The Sith would finally manage to overrun the defenders in the Minos cluster, and over the next decade, they would slowly grind their way through the Outer Rim. Even neutral worlds, such as Manan, were involved in the conflict. The Republic was pushed back on all fronts, and by the end of that decade, the Sith Empire controlled almost half of the Outer Rim. They would end this campaign by conquering the Saswina sector, the same sector the Republic had fought so hard for in their first counterattack. After this, the Empire prepared to make inroads into the Mid-Rim, and it was here that Vitiate made his first mistake. He believed that he still had the momentum and ordered his forces to attack the key Mid-Rim world of Bothawui. He believed that the Republic was still scattered and unprepared. In reality, Admiral Greek of the Republic Navy had reorganized the fleets in the area. He had anticipated the attack and prepared a solid defensive line. The Republic would score their first real victory of the war in the First Battle of Bothawui, smashing the Imperial fleet in orbit as they attacked the world. The Empire would respond by sending a second, larger force, and while they would take the space around the planet, the planetary shields would force the Imperials into a ground invasion. Much of the Republic force on Bothawui had withdrawn ahead of the Second Imperial invasion. Admiral Greek and Jedi Master Belth Alusis recognized that the Sith would not stand for their defeat in the first battle and would return. Instead of waiting to lose, most of their forces had been called back to the core to fight another day. Master Alusis stayed behind with a skeleton force of soldiers to hold for as long as they could. This decision proved a prudent one. The Republic fought like enraged Gundarks. For every one of them that fell, 10 of the Sith were taken with them. They refused multiple offers of surrender and instead fought to the very last man. The Sith would eventually take the planet, but so many of their forces were destroyed in the effort that they were forced to withdraw. Sometimes, apprentice, defeat will come, and it will come honestly. Vitiate did the right thing by continuing to press his momentum on Bothawui, but his enemy was prepared for him, and they earned a victory for their effort. However, his pride got the better of him. Bothawui could not be allowed to stand defiant in his eyes, and so he committed more forces in a futile move which cost him. And here, apprentice, we learn your 5th lesson. You must never assault a fortified position. This will only wear down your forces and allow your enemy to maneuver around you. You must go around such places, find a way to hit the enemy where they are least defended, to draw them away from such strongholds. Luckily, Vitiate was wise enough to attack along several fronts. He ground down the mid-rim as he did the outer, and after 13 years of warfare, he was poised to strike finally into the core itself. To do so, he chose an invasion of the world of Alderaan. Alderaan was strategically positioned to act as a perfect beachhead into the wider core, and it also served as a symbolic victory as one of the Republic's founding worlds. The Emperor would dispatch one of his greatest warriors, the burgeoning Sith Lord Darth Malgus, to personally lead the campaign. They once again expected a quick victory, and once again, the Imperials would make a mistake. Alderaan was indeed strategically located, and as such, it was a stopping point for Republic troops headed to the battles in the mid and outer rim. There was always a sizable garrison of Federal troops on the surface, and as such, what was expected to be a quick invasion of a pacifistic world instead turned into another brutal slog of a battle. Despite the heavy fighting, Malgus would score several key early victories. He would seize the Alderaanian royal family and manage to break through to threaten the capital city of Aldera itself. The Republic would launch a desperate counterattack that would catch Malgus personally leading his forces towards an assault on the city. The two forces would clash, and initially the Imperials would gain the upper hand. However, Republic reinforcements under Jedi Knight Satele Shan would arrive and drive the Imperials back. Darth Malgus would be defeated on the field, and the upper hand would swing back into favor of the Republic. The Empire would be forced to retreat after a costly defeat. This effectively stalled the Imperial advance into the core. The war settled into a stalemate that would begin to wear on both sides. As the war dragged on, Imperial intelligence began to work on alternative means of breaking the deadlock. They selected an individual in the arenas of Geonosis, and they helped this individual begin to slowly rise through the ranks of gladiators. They fixed his fights for him, and eventually they positioned this man as Mandalore, uniter of the scattered clans. Their ruse worked. The Mandalorians came back together from the far corners of the galaxy. Mandalore pledged himself to the Imperials and called on his people to face the greatest challenge, to fight the Jedi Knights as their forefathers had. They would enter the war with a fervor. The Imperials would score victories in the Rim at places such as Hoth, and their new Mandalorian allies would be ordered to blockade the Hydean Way, the most vital trade route into the Republic. Mandalore would move his fleets into position, and slowly the Republic would begin to strangle. Food shortages became common in the core, and the Jedi would launch a desperate counterattack that would be soundly defeated. And here we find your 6th lesson, apprentice. You must control the status quo. Vitiate lost control of the status quo when things dropped into a stalemate. By bringing the Mandalorians onto his side, he was able to circumvent the new context and break the deadlock that had been produced. By doing this, he brought the conflict firmly back into his control. The Republic began to grow desperate. Riots broke out on Coruscant, and there was talk in the Senate of surrender to the Sith. But Vitiate would be undone by fate. a smuggler by the name of Viz saw a business opportunity. Viz knew that whoever could break the Mandalorian blockade would be able to charge almost any price for raw goods. And so, a smuggler fleet was organized. The promise of riches drawing reprobates from across the rim like flies. They would attack the Mandalorian blockade, and nearby Republic forces would catch wind of the attack. They would jump into the battle after it had already been joined, and their added presence allowed the smugglers to smash the Mandalorian ships and break the blockade of the hiding way. While this was happening, the Imperial campaigns continued in the Outer Rim. However, they would again meet with defeat at the world of Ord Radama. The Sith would invade, and initially they were met with success, capturing it with little losses. However, supplies and reinforcements never arrived, and eventually, the Republic would send aid to the world. They would catch the garrisoned Imperials low on supplies, cutting them off and dealing a crushing defeat which left the capital devastated. The Republic would finally have the momentum swing in their favor, and they would follow up these victories with a counteroffensive into Sith space. They would send forces to probe the defenses of Korriban, but their main fleet would attack the world of Ziost. The Republic hoped to establish a beachhead within Sith-held space, and Ziost was within striking distance of both Korriban and Dromund Kaas. The battle would be a long and bloody one. The Republic would manage to land forces on the planet, but after months of fighting, the Imperials were able to fend them off. The Republic would be forced to withdraw, with heavy losses. And again, the Imperials would seize the tide of battle back. They would learn of a massing Republic force at Serrano, and they would dispatch Darth Malgus to seize the world. Malgus would conquer the planet, and force the Republic to abandon further plans to invade Sith space. The Empire would then launch a double-pronged offensive. One was sent to the world of Renvar, where the Imperials met with initial success. However, a group of Jedi, led by Satele Shan, was able to rally Republic forces and drive the Imperials back. The second prong was dispatched back to the world of Ord Radama. Malgus was ordered to avenge the Sith defeat there, and he would do so, though only through months of bloody fighting that made the first battle look like a mere skirmish. The Imperials would have victory, but both sides would be devastated, and the planet would be left in ruins. Stalemate would threaten to settle in once more, and after nearly 3 decades of war, the Republic would be caught off guard by the one thing they did not expect: an offer of peace from the Sith Empire. The Jedi would warn the Republic that this was a ruse, but even they knew that the war could not be won. Both sides had suffered heavily in the fighting, but it was the Republic that was on the brink of collapse. They agreed to peace negotiations, and the meetings were held on Holocron. But the Jedi were proven right. While these meetings were being held, the Sith led a massive fleet behind Republic lines in a surprise attack against the capital of Coruscant itself. Darth Malgus and Darth Angral, another powerful Sith Lord, led the attack personally. Malgus assaulted and destroyed the Jedi Temple, slaying all within. Angral ordered his fleet to attack the surface, and landed to take the Senate building himself. He would slay the Supreme Chancellor, and Coruscant would fall fully under Sith control. The Republic was faced with no alternative. The Sith diplomats on Alderaan were able to dictate extreme terms, and the Republic had no choice but to accept. The Sith would leave Coruscant, and peace would reign in the galaxy again. but many of the Republic's outer worlds would be sacrificed to Sith control. By the end, the Sith Empire would control fully half of the galaxy, including worlds through the outer and mid-rims, and the core itself. 12 long years of tenuous peace would settle in. We have already discussed Lord Vitiate and Revan in detail, and through them learned more about the events of this time. How it was Revan who influenced the Sith Emperor into peace, and how Revan's rescue would lead Vitiate to restart the war against the Republic. We will not go into these events further here. You may review those lessons at any time. But the peace would end, and when it did, Vitiate would send his Sith against the Republic with renewed vigor. The second conflict between the two sides, known simply as the Galactic War, began with an Imperial offensive against the core world of Corellia. The Imperials, as they had hoped with Holocron, again sought to capture a greater foothold in the core, and they had once again selected a Republic founding world as their target. The battle there would rage for months, and millions would die, but thanks to the Jedi known as the Hero of Tython, it would end in a Republic victory. The Empire would be forced from the world, and the momentum would swing back with the Republic. The Republic, remembering how costly the last conflict had been, learned well the lessons I have given you so far. They did not waste their momentum, and struck almost immediately, gambling everything on an attack against the Imperial homeworld of Dromankos itself. There, the Hero of Tython would confront Lord Vitiate in the body of one of his many children, hoping to end the conflict in one fell swoop. The hero would defeat the Emperor, and Vitiate's consciousness would be gravely wounded. He would flee to Yavin 4 to recover, and then eventually to his body of Valkorion, ruling the Eternal Empire from the unknown regions. The defeat of the Sith Emperor fractured the Sith Empire into various competing factions, while the squabbling and infighting these factions engaged in did keep the conflict more limited in scope than the previous war. It was not the win the Republic had hoped for. They instead needed now to deal with many smaller threats, and their resources began to be taxed thin as multiple hotspots flared up across the galaxy. This infighting, and the many brushfire wars they produced, would lead the Eternal Empire into an easy victory when a reconstituted Vitiate would lead them from the unknown regions to attack both the Republic and his own Sith Empire. Though Vitiate, as you have learned, apprentice, would be overthrown and eventually slain by his children, the Eternal Empire would sweep away both the Republic and the Sith. The Sith Empire would bear the worst of it. Without Vitiate, it had already degenerated into many minor factions, and the assault of the Eternal Empire would sweep the last vestiges of it away forever. A rebellion would be formed between the remnants of the Republic military and some few Sith who still wished to carry on the fight, and eventually this rebellion, led by a being known as the Outlander, would manage to defeat the Eternal Empire and restore true peace to the galaxy. The galaxy would be forever changed by these conflicts. The Sith Empire would cease to exist for a time. Individual Sith and groups of Sith would still raid along the outer and mid-rim, forming pirate gangs or small covens of dark-side users. The Republic would become a shadow of its former self. Its control disappeared in all but name outside the core. Much of the galaxy had been left devastated, and manufacturing and the trade routes needed to support it began to break down on a wide scale. technology began to regress, and order became something enforced in much of the galaxy at the point of a blaster. The Jedi would attempt to stave off complete anarchy by seizing direct control of many worlds and sectors. These Jedi would proclaim themselves lords, and a feudal system of governing would settle in across most of the galaxy. But that is a story for your next lesson. You have learned much, apprentice, about the figures of Vitiate and Revan. You have incorporated their wisdom into your own power. Now you must incorporate the wisdom of their time. Learn the secrets of warfare, become their true master, and never know defeat. Learn from Vitiate's mistakes. Study these campaigns. See where the Republic was able to hold on. Learn why. And then learn how to avoid such things in your own strategic plans. Meditate on the 6 lessons of war I have given you throughout this tale. Truly attempt to find their meaning. Think of ways to apply them across many situations. And then, I have a test for you, in order to prove that you have mastered warfare. The Jedi maintain an outpost on Coruscant's moon of Syntax 2. Even now, I can sense them, even from orbit, like still pools of calm in the Force. Their presence offends me. You will wipe out this outpost. You will be outnumbered, and your enemy is entrenched, but you have the element of surprise. If you are strong, if you are wise, you will soon also have the 6 lessons of warfare on your side. Wipe them out. All of them. Leave no trace. The Jedi must not yet know it was you who led the attack. When their blood stains the halls of their little academy, return to me, and we will continue your lessons with a more esoteric exploration of the Force, of the power of choice, and the weight of destiny by studying a little-known but potent Dark Lord, one who lived long ago, and who defied the will of the Force and redefined what it meant to be Sith. Good luck, apprentice. May your blade strike true. Enjoy your first taste of battle against the Jedi, and learn well the lessons of the Great Galactic War. Go now, and may the Force break your chains.